Yeah, well, you can also see there that makes the issue of leadership a complicated one, right? Because we know that the big 5 personality profile of narcissists is something like high extroversion and low agreeableness. And so you can see there that someone who's low in agreeableness is going to put their viewpoint forward in a pretty aggressive manner, and someone who's extroverted is going to be enthusiastic and captivating. And you need those. You can understand that there might be situations that cry out for genuine leadership where both being extroverted and being disagreeable would be an advantage. And, that might be a situation where you hope like hell that your extroverted, disagreeable politician is also extremely high in conscientiousness. So that even though they might like attention and even though they might be less empathic, then that their relative lack of empathy would pose a certain risk, that their proclivity to abide by a set of ethical principles would override that. But then you get people who fake that conscientiousness and fake competence, which is partly what psychopaths do when they entrap women, is to fake that competence and then to look like you're abiding by the rules when you're just being Machiavellian and narcissistic and manipulative.
Yeah, that's fascinating to think about different combinations and of the big 5, but also of the dark tetrad. I wrote a paper on Steve Jobs, for example, some time ago. It helps to be a genius, of course, but if you're a full narcissist who believes you have the right idea and the entire world is wrong about it, everyone disagreed with him, and he was right.
Right. Well, that's a good example of that hyper-successful niche, right? So that's a very interesting case, because you're going to get the odd situation where someone is narcissistic and hyper-intelligent and correct, in which case their narcissism and their callousness, in some sense, is absolutely what's needed to bring forth that whole set of ideas.
Well, in fact, he was fired by his own company after having proved himself to be a genius and changing the world in so many ways. His own company said he was too obnoxious, so they let him go. Eventually, the company kind of faded out. They had to bring him back. But
right.
How can you be so super successful and fired by your own team? Classic case.
Well, I know people who worked with Jobs, and one of the things they told me was that he was unerring in his ability to cull. So he had a very high eye for quality, but he also didn't let empathy stop him from killing projects he thought were counterproductive. And that's a tough one, right? Because you can imagine, you can't say that if you're running a company and you're attempting to produce something, that keeping a faltering project going because you don't want to hurt the feelings of the employees by bringing it to a halt is a moral virtue. It's not a moral virtue. And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is that you're just prolonging the agony and awaiting the inevitable death, right? So you have the evidence in some sense at hand, but you're unwilling to draw the appropriate conclusions from it. And there is that same necessity for discrimination and elimination that might also be driving the capacity, as you pointed out earlier, of a surgeon to go into someone's body and to get rid of the cancer, right? Independent of the fact that they have to deal with the blood and the gore and the pain and the fear and all of that, and they can't let that stop them.
Yeah, I agree totally with everything you just said. I wanted to